There are moments in life when you feel completely powerless, when the system designed to help people seems to turn its back on you for reasons you can't understand or control. Moments when you're told that money matters more than life, that policies are more important than people, and that some lives are simply worth more than others. If you've ever felt that crushing helplessness watching someone you love suffer while being told there's nothing that can be done, then what I'm about to share with you will shake you to your very core. This is a story about a mother's desperate love, about a healthcare system that failed when it mattered most, and about the incredible truth that sometimes the most powerful people in the world are hiding in plain sight, wearing the uniforms of the invisible workers we pass by every day. It's about discovering that miracles don't always come in the form you expect, and that angels sometimes carry mop buckets instead of harps. What happened to me and my 7-year-old daughter, Sophia, changed everything I believed about hope, about justice, and about the kind of people who truly have the power to move mountains. I was a widow, a single mother, working as a hotel housekeeper, watching my baby girl slowly die from a heart condition, while doctors turned their backs because I couldn't pay their price. I had given up on everything except prayer, when a quiet janitor who barely spoke English became the answer to every desperate plea I'd whispered into the darkness. If you've ever felt helpless watching someone you love suffer, if you've ever been told no when someone's life hung in the balance, this story will restore your faith in miracles. Hit that like button right now if you believe that angels walk among us in unexpected forms. If you believe that there are still people in this world who choose compassion over profit, who use their power to lift others up instead of keeping them down. And if you want to hear more incredible stories about hidden heroes, about the amazing ways ordinary-looking people can change everything with a single act of kindness, subscribe to this channel, because I promise you these stories will remind you that miracles are real, that good people with power still exist, and that sometimes salvation comes from the last place you'd ever think to look. What I'm about to tell you proves that the person mopping the floors beside you might be the very angel you've been praying for, and that love really can move mountains when it's backed by someone brave enough to act on it. My name is Elena Martinez, and 2 years ago, I thought I had lost everything when my husband Carlos died in that terrible car accident. He was driving home from his construction job when a drunk driver ran a red light and took away the love of my life, the father of my precious daughter Sophia. But I was wrong about having lost everything, because I still had her, my beautiful 7-year-old, with her father's kind eyes, and my stubborn determination to find joy even in the darkest moments. We came to this country from El Salvador when Sophia was just a baby, chasing the American dream that so many families like ours believe in. Carlos worked construction. I cleaned hotel rooms, and together we built a simple but happy life in our tiny apartment. My English was never perfect, but Sophia was teaching me new words every day from school. And Carlos always said that love didn't need perfect grammar to be understood. After Carlos died, I worked double shifts to keep us afloat. Morning shift at the downtown hotel, evening shift at the office building across town, sometimes a weekend job, cleaning houses when I could find one. Sophia would stay with our neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez after school, doing her homework at the kitchen table while I scrubbed toilets and changed bed sheets, always rushing home to make her dinner and help with her reading before she fell asleep. Sophia was my whole world, my reason for getting up every morning, my proof that Carlos's love lived on in this beautiful little person who had his gentle spirit and his way of making everyone around her smile. She never complained about our small apartment or the fact that her clothes came from thrift stores. She never asked why we couldn't afford the toys her classmates had, or why mommy was always so tired. She just loved me with the pure, uncomplicated love that only children possess. That's why, when the doctor at the free clinic told me that Sophia had a serious heart condition, when he explained in his careful, sympathetic voice that her heart was failing and she would need surgery to survive, my world didn't just crumble. It completely disintegrated. The words, experimental procedure, and very expensive, and not covered by insurance, floated around me like smoke while I held my daughter's small hand and tried to understand how God could ask me to lose the only family I had left. Sophia looked up at me with those trusting brown eyes and asked, "Mama, why are you crying?" And I realized that I had to find a way to save her, no matter what it cost me. Children's Medical Center looked like a palace compared to the free clinic where we'd received Sophia's diagnosis. The marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and everything smelled like expensive cleaning products and fresh flowers. I held Sophia's hand tightly as we walked through those imposing glass doors, both of us dressed in our best clothes. Her Sunday dress that was getting too small, and my one nice blouse that I saved for parent-teacher conferences. Dr. Harrison was exactly what I expected from such a fancy hospital. Tall, distinguished, with silver hair and a white coat so crisp it looked like it had never been worn before. He spoke to us like we were an inconvenience, barely looking at Sophia as he explained her condition in medical terms I struggled to understand. But I caught the important parts: experimental surgery, 85% success rate, $850,000 total cost. When I asked about payment plans, about working for the hospital to pay off the debt, about anything that might make this possible, Dr. Harrison's expression grew cold. "Mrs. Martinez," he said slowly, like he was talking to a child, "this hospital is not a charity. We require full payment up front for experimental procedures. Perhaps you should consider seeking care at a public hospital." But the public hospitals couldn't perform this surgery. Sophia would die without this specific treatment, and Dr. Harrison knew it. I watched him dismiss my daughter's life with the same casual indifference he might show when deciding what to have for lunch. To him, Sophia wasn't a bright, funny little girl who still believed in fairy tales and helped her neighbor feed stray cats. She was just a poor kid whose mother couldn't pay. I started a GoFundMe page, though I barely knew how to use the computer at the library. I went to every church in our neighborhood, standing up during prayer requests to beg for help in my broken English. Local news covered our story, and people's hearts opened. We raised $50,000 in 3 weeks. It felt like a miracle until I realized it wasn't even close to enough. Sophia grew weaker every day. The vibrant little girl who used to dance around our apartment now spent most afternoons lying on the couch, too tired to play. She'd ask me quietly, "Mama, am I going to die like Papa?" And I would hold her close and lie, telling her everything would be okay, while my heart shattered into smaller and smaller pieces. Time was running out, and I was failing the most important person in my world. By the time I returned to Children's Medical Center with our community donations, Sophia could barely walk without getting dizzy. I carried her in my arms through that marble lobby, past families who looked like they belonged there, past children whose parents could afford to save them. The insurance director, a woman with perfect makeup and a voice like ice, listened to my plea for a payment plan with the patience of someone waiting for an annoying commercial to end. "Mrs. Martinez, hospital policy is very clear," she said, not even bothering to look at Sophia, who was struggling to stay awake in my arms. "We cannot provide experimental treatments without full payment up front. It's a liability issue. A liability issue." My daughter's life was a liability issue. I fell to my knees right there in that pristine hallway, Sophia still in my arms, and I begged. I begged in English, in Spanish, in the universal language of a mother's desperation. Other families stopped and stared as I sobbed, promising to work for free, to clean their floors, to do anything if they would just save my baby. The humiliation burned through me, but I didn't care about my dignity anymore. I only cared about Sophia. That's when I first noticed Miguel. He was an older man in a janitor's uniform, quietly mopping the floors nearby. While everyone else either stared at my breakdown or looked away in embarrassment, he approached me gently and offered me tissues from his cart. He spoke to me in Spanish, his voice warm and kind, telling me he understood my pain because he had lost a child too. Señora, he said softly, sometimes God puts people in our path when we need them most. Don't give up hope. There was something about the way he said it, something in his eyes that seemed to carry more weight than his simple janitor's uniform suggested. But I was drowning in despair and barely noticed. 2 days later, Sophia collapsed at school. The ambulance rushed her to Children's Medical Center, and the doctors told me what I already knew in my heart. She had hours, maybe a day at most. I found Dr. Harrison in his office and fell to my knees again, this time begging him to operate first and let me worry about payment later. I'm sorry, he said, not sounding sorry at all. But that's not how medicine works. And in that moment, I realized I was about to lose everything that mattered, just like I had when Carlos died. Except this time, it was because the world valued money more than my daughter's life. I was sitting in the hospital chapel, holding Sophia's weak little hand, and praying to Carlos to help me find a way to save our baby, when Miguel appeared in the doorway. But something was different about him. He wasn't wearing his janitor's uniform anymore. Instead, he was dressed in an expensive suit, and there were other people with him. People who looked important, who carried themselves like they owned the world. Señora Martinez, he said in Spanish, sitting down beside me, I need to tell you who I really am. And then this quiet man who had been mopping floors and emptying trash cans told me something that made no sense at all. His name wasn't just Miguel, it was Miguel Santos. And he was one of the richest men in the country. He owned technology companies, hotels, entire buildings downtown. And for the past month, he had been working as a janitor at this hospital because he was thinking about buying it. He explained that he wanted to see how they treated people like us, people who couldn't afford their care. He had been investigating their policies when he witnessed my breakdown in the hallway, when he saw Dr. Harrison turn away a dying child because her mother was poor. You were the proof I needed, he said gently, that this place needs to change. But there was more. Miguel told me that he had lost his own daughter to cancer 15 years ago, before he became wealthy, when he was just another desperate father begging doctors to save his child. I became rich, too late to save her, he said, tears in his eyes. But maybe I can save yours. Within an hour, everything changed. Miguel had made a phone call, and suddenly, Dr. Harrison was rushing to prepare Sophia for surgery. The same man who had dismissed us as charity cases was now assembling the best surgical team money could buy. Miguel sat with me during the 8-hour operation, this billionaire who had disguised himself as a janitor, holding my hand while the surgeons worked to save my daughter's life. When Dr. Harrison emerged from the operating room to tell us that Sophia's surgery was a complete success, that she would make a full recovery, I collapsed into Miguel's arms sobbing. But he wasn't finished shocking me. He was buying the hospital, he said. And from now on, no child would ever be denied care because their family couldn't pay. He was creating a foundation in memory of his daughter and in honor of Sophia, ensuring that families like ours would never face what we had faced. 6 months later, I watched Sophia run around the playground at her new school, her laughter echoing across the yard like music. Her scar from the surgery has faded to a thin white line, and her heart beats strong and steady. Sometimes I have to pinch myself to believe this is real, that my baby is healthy and happy, that we're not living paycheck to paycheck anymore, that I don't have to choose between rent money and groceries. Miguel kept every promise he made that day in the hospital chapel. He bought Children's Medical Center and transformed it into a place where every child receives the care they need, regardless of their family's ability to pay. Dr. Harrison resigned in disgrace, replaced by doctors who understand that healing is about more than profit margins. Miguel offered me a position as the hospital's family advocate, helping other families navigate the system that had nearly failed us so completely. But more than the financial security, more than the job that gives me purpose, Miguel gave us something even more precious: hope. He became the grandfather Sophia never had, the father figure who shows up to her school plays and helps her with science projects, When she asks me how we got so lucky, I tell her the truth that still amazes me every day. Sometimes angels disguise themselves as janitors, and miracles come from the most unexpected places. Miguel often tells me that Sophia and I saved him as much as he saved us. After losing his daughter, he had money but no meaning, power but no purpose. Watching me fight for Sophia reminded him why he had worked so hard to build his fortune in the first place. Not to accumulate wealth, but to have the power to help when help was needed most. Elena and Sophia's story proves that miracles happen when compassion meets capability, when someone with power chooses to use it for good instead of profit. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that there are still people in this world who believe that love matters more than money, smash that like button right now. Share this with someone who needs to believe in guardian angels and hidden heroes walking among us every day. Subscribe for more incredible true stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, about the amazing ways kindness can change everything, and about proof that good people with power can literally move mountains. Remember, the person you pass by every day, the one in work clothes who seems invisible, might just be the angel you've been praying for. Look closer, love deeper, because miracles are real, and they're happening all around us.